going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and welcome to my final top 10 of 2017, the last video of our first year on Skylent Games. This has been a blast, and it really all started, the acceleration, the pedal to the metal, began with my top 10 IO game list. And I'm back again to tell you my new list, my new favorite IO games, the ones that had the biggest impact. So IO games, definitely a brand new frontier, and a lot of people don't take them seriously, but trust me guys, you should. I think the horizon's incredibly wide with IO games, and I cannot wait to see what next year has to offer. But of course, I might have missed some games already. There's tons of them popping up, so if you know of some, leave it in the comments below. But for those who don't know what an IO game is, hopefully this is an exemplary set of games. I hope you have fun, but basically you should just know that it's a browser-based game. You just plug it in, they normally end with .io, and then as soon as you hit enter, you're essentially playing the game. But in the spirit of brevity, we should probably jump into the top 10 here. My list, my top 10 IO games. Let's have some fun. Okay, friends, so starting out this list, we have Zorb.io. Basically, I can kind of relate this to a GAR if it was 3D. And one thing that's really exciting to me is that it just runs fantastically. It's incredibly trance-like, actually, as you're playing too. And all of the little pellets, like you would normally see in normal IO games, well, these are arranged in loops and lines, and it's kind of elliptical. So you have this like very zen-like experience where you're just kind of following the lines. But don't worry, there is a game to be played here. You can actually accelerate, which is going to make you lose mass, but if you see someone smaller than you and they're kind of going on that pattern of the pellets, you can kind of intercept them and snipe them out, and that's actually pretty fun. But if you do just want to have a really interesting, engaging introduction into the IO genre, then I think this 3D IO game is a fantastic game to play. Next up at number 9, I have Starblast.io. Now, I would put this a little bit higher, but more or less, it's actually just kind of like Deep.io, DEIP.io, except it's 3D, and it runs fantastically, which not many IO games really do. There's a couple that are kind of cloney of Starblast here, and it's kind of like an Asteroids-ish experience, but it's really similar to Deep. So essentially, it's space, and there's space stations, and then there's like 3 different factions, which is kind of a different mix there. But overall, it plays really fast. There is some engaging sort of resource management, how you can't just spam shots. You actually have to kind of have a cooldown period there, and the upgrades are slightly different, and in some cases a little bit less fantastic than the predecessor. However, overall, its gameplay and how it plays, there is some interesting mechanics or physics that has been added in, and that's really where I want to see the direction of IO games going. Adding things that you would expect from downloaded experience, but right there slapped in the browser. Next up on our list, Brutal.io. So the mechanics of this game involve you are like a little tiny pellet yourself, and then you carry around a little mace. You might have played games like Particle Mace, and there's a few other IO games that have similar concepts, but Brutal.io, in my opinion, is the perfect execution of this. It runs fantastically, its netcode is pretty great, always something to mention with IO games, and overall, this is a physics-based game. Like, you actually are slinging and flinging your flail around, and there's some interesting mechanics where you can disengage the flail and you kind of shoot it off in the distance. Of course, it's still physics-based. You have to actually aim it and orient it, and then you can recall it like a boomerang. So with that experience and overall aesthetically and its performance, its execution, it's just really freaking solid. Moving on through the list pretty quickly here, we have a game called ManOrMonster.io. So very similar to maybe like Squad.io or a couple other like isometric or top-down shooter type IO games. Man or Monster is kind of different because it involves 2 different factions that play very differently. You have a bunch of different monsters, and then of course you have the humans, and there's a bunch of different kind of humans, like from helicopters, airplanes, stuff like that. And then there's like these random sort of environmental effects where like the missiles shoot across the sky, and it's really ridiculous. It reminds me of like Rampage, which there's a movie coming out of Rampage, which I'm like, has Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in it. Anyways, so it kind of reminds me of that as an IO game, but then you can also play as humans. I think it's just ridiculous. It's really short, quick, silly fun, but hey, that's the spirit of IO games anyways. Alright guys, next up on the list is the newest game that I've played, and it's a game called Warbrokers.io. Essentially, it's Battlefield, but browser-based, and it looks all voxely and cute. And it definitely is a cute big team battle game, and we really don't have that existing. I mean, if you just look at IO games and try to see some other first-person shooters, it doesn't really work out. But Warbrokers, even though it's a huge, like, big maps, and you got all these vehicles and all these different weapons, it runs really freaking well. And I think that it's not perfect, absolutely, which is why it's not higher on the list. But overall, if this is the future of IO games and we can expect more, bigger, better, oh my gosh, dude, so excited. And it does remind me of something like Battlefield Heroes. But now I think with the proper IO naming and it's really, truly, properly browser-based, man, I really hope we see a comeback of those kind of games. And now let's talk about a game called Zombs.io. It's kind of like Ark. This one actually adds PvE elements into the PvP mix. In fact, it's mostly focused on PvP. So even though Zombs.io is similar to Mumu.io in terms of mechanics and also aesthetic, the difference is that one is focused on PvP, the other is focused a lot on PvE. But Zombs, however, is... wow, I've played for an hour length and I still didn't actually do everything in this game. I mean, you could just sit there and just do stuff forever and ever, build your base like for so long in the upgrades. So this one plays a little bit more like tower defense proper, and then monster waves spawn every night, I believe, and for individuals. Like whenever you spawn a base, you can also have teams, of course, and then the monsters are, they're called zombies, but I really feel like they're more like orcs and goblins and stuff like that, because some of them have like flails and swords, and they're gonna come and actually attack your base. You have upgrades, shields, you can have different weapons, you can focus on PvP or defense or just building, and of course you're gonna have your tower defense leveling, like you can go from like diamond to red level to gold and stuff like that. So a lot of progression here. You're gonna sit here for a long time, but of course you have to weigh it. Do you want PvP or PvE, Zombs.io or Mumu.io? For me, I'm gonna put it higher up because it has the added mechanics of PvE to Zombs.io. All right, next up on the list, we have a game called SLAY.ONE, not .io.1. Now, this is going to be pretty similar in a lot of ways to Infection type IO games. Now, there was one I wanted to put on the list, but it actually changed its name, changed its focus, and there was a couple others that kind of fell from grace, but SLAY.ONE is the one that has, honestly, the best production value, and it has the most breadth of gameplay as well. So you can play this like an arena shooter, or top-down at least. You can play this like a team-based game, and then also, of course, you have the Infection mode, which is actually really fun because zombies can evolve, and it's not just PvE like Zombs.io. Players turn into zombies, and so yeah, it's Infection proper. And then you get like different levels. You can become a kind of boss, and you can like throw up on different people. It kind of feels like Left 4 Dead in a way. But yeah, you have like your rocket launchers. You can actually build turrets, and you can even move like barrels and stuff to kind of like protect yourself. You remember like those Halo 2 days playing Infection? You would kind of huddle into a room and move the objects and furniture and stack it together. So you have those elements, and then of course you have the arena shooter elements, and it just runs great. The sounds, the audio is great, something I never mentioned in IO games. It sounds fantastic. Overall production value, overall gameplay mechanics, everything about it feels freaking above the rest when it comes to just normal everyday IO games, which puts it so high on this list. At number 3, let's talk about a game called Bonk IO, which is basically everyone is a circle. And of course, you can customize that circle with funny faces and things, symbols, sure, but the creativity there. And you can just knock people off or into certain death objects. And that's all neat and dandy. There's other games like that. But Bonk has an extra mechanic where you make yourself heavier. So whenever you want, you can just change your momentum or gain momentum by making yourself heavier. So if you're really high in the air, make yourself heavier, you're going to slam down pretty hard. And there's going to be maps where it's kind of like a seesaw. There's going to be maps where you need to push a wall over to squish someone else, and of course you're just going to be sumoing, running into people, and you want to have that momentum, you want to have a certain weight, and of course you don't want to get knocked off either. But some maps are just extra weird. It's not just about falling off a platform. There was one map I played where it was like a lamp and you wanted to stay inside the light, and the way that map was designed was just insane. I don't even know how it was done. And then there was one map where people were literally inside mechs. Somehow the momentum was being controlled and you could move around these mech bodies, and it's just crazy. So the custom maps that we're seeing from players, the creativity that is put on display is just something that I cannot describe. It's so much more than just, okay, you're a circle, knock off other circles from the platform. It's like, what are the platforms? What are the rules of this universe, man, that you can do? What is possible in this game? Having like slingshots and freaking pinball machines, and of course, literally controlling mechs. We're freaking Gundam versus here. I really can't describe the potential for this game, but of course, at its bare bones simplest, Bonk.io is just a simple, fun sumo time, I guess, but trust me, the rabbit hole goes so much deeper. Yeah, well, after all of that, what can live up to that? But I think Brutes.io has got something to say. So Brutes.io is a fantastic little top-down brawler. It's just a punch 'em up, I guess. It's like a shoot 'em up, but with, boxing gloves. So it's adorable. It's got a lot of customization in terms of cosmetics, but it kind of feels just really silly and wonky. And I think absolutely in the spirit of IO games, you just want to jump in and just have a good time, fun for the whole family. And I think it's really appealing with its 3D graphics, and it runs fantastically. And I just think it has a lot of charm. So Brutes.io, you jump in, you punch people, you get bigger, so you get bigger punches. You can knock people down, they get knocked out, and then you want to, beat them up so you can eat their little orby globby things. But then there's also like these really weird kind of arena shooter style pickups, like you have this rocket that you can fly around on, pick everyone up and smash into walls. You have this thing where you can go invisible, you kind of get like a Metal Gear Solid box, and you kind of run around and then uppercut somebody whenever they're not expecting it. You can roll bombs, and it is a 3D map, so there are some parts where you can jump off of ledges or go up ledges. There's a little bit of momentum mechanics there, barely, but in the end, it's not too ridiculous. It's really just cute, clean, punch 'em up fun. But finally, here you are. You probably clicked on this top 10 list to see what my #1 IO game of the last year was. And guys, it's actually going to be the game. The #1 game that you guys commented last year that should have been on the list. Well, now it finally made it, in my opinion. We have Deep.io. DEEP.io. So this is basically take the old school Agar.io, and then what can truly evolve from those core roots? Well, you have a game where you evolve starting from a couple different animals, like, I don't know, a piranha or something like that, and then you transform into like a jellyfish and then a seagull and all sorts of ridiculous stuff, all the way to like freaking Cthulhu, and you run around and eat different animals, and you have different abilities and attributes, and you want to eat different resources, and the map itself is also kind of convoluted maybe in some ways, where there's like depths and then there's temperatures, and it just basically take Agar where you get bigger and by eating little planktons, and then you can eat other players, except now in every single mechanical way, let's add one extra step. Let's add something bigger. Let's make the game more deep. And that's how we have fantastic game that has only gotten bigger since it was announced, and that's why it's finally on the list, and not just making it, but absolutely slapped itself at #1. That's the end of my top 10 IO list. That's just my personal opinion. I have to admit, I was a little conflicted about some games making it or not making it on the list, but I chose the games that I thought the most amount of people would appreciate as much as I did. Of course, there's some more niche games that target more specific types of gameplay. Well, I've got top 10 lists for those too, like top 10 co-op IO games list if you want to check that out. And coming next year, we got way more, such as very soon here, 3D specific IO games that I think you're going to be really enlightened by. Yeah, IO games have grown so much since 1 year ago, and they're probably going to grow a whole lot more, so I can't wait to see all of you back again when that happens. So stay tuned, follow along, join the Discord, so I don't know, maybe we could play together, friends, because that's the whole point, right? Spirit of IO games, play them anywhere, anytime, always, and if you want to join, well, I'm game. But regardless, whatever you do play, I hope you're having fun. Thanks for watching, my name's Skylent, and I'll see you in the next one.